Welcome back to another Explainer. Today we're diving into a fascinating, highly specific gardening journal entry by an author named Eng. We're going to unpack the journey of a single, unassuming little plant and see just how a gardener's entire perspective can shift when faced with the wild realities of nature. It's literally the scientific method playing out right there in a backyard garden.
Okay, let's dive into this. 963. Wow. This isn't just some casual weekend hobbyist jotting down a passing thought, right? This specific entry is part 963 of Eng's ongoing gardening notes, published on July 22nd, 2026. Just think about the sheer dedication and meticulous record-keeping that implies. To reach entry number 963, you're closely observing micro changes in your environment day in and day out. It really sets the stage for us, letting us know that what we're about to explore isn't just a random event. It's a documented data point in a massive, ongoing study of a local ecosystem.
Section 1. Meet the Yellow Woodsorrel. Every great story needs a protagonist, and ours is honestly pretty unexpected. The official scientific designation is oxalis-corniculata, but to you and me, that's the Yellow Woodsorrel. Now, what's really interesting here is Eng's description of it simply growing wildly here and there. You know, usually when wild plants pop up uncontrollably in our gardens, we call them weeds, don't we? And we spend our entire weekend pulling them out, trying to eradicate the whole shebang. But Eng takes a completely different, highly observational approach to this little wild specimen.
Section 2. The ground cover experiment.
See, Eng didn't just want to watch this plant. They wanted to test its capabilities in a structured way, really applying the scientific method. According to the journal, there was a deliberate attempt to cultivate this yellow woodsorrel as a ground cover. Let's just pause and think about the irony of that for a second. Cultivating a quote-unquote weed on purpose. It's a total flip of the traditional gardening script. Instead of fighting nature's wild elements, Eng actually tried to harness the persistence of this little plant for a structured aesthetic purpose in the garden. It was a pretty bold hypothesis. If it grows so wildly, surely it's going to make an excellent self-sustaining ground cover. Section 3. The aggressive weed takeover. And this brilliantly illustrates where our grand experiment meets a harsh reality out there in the soil. This brings us right to the central conflict of Eng's past experiment. We've got the fragile yellow woodsorrel on one side, and what Eng calls other aggressive weeds on the other. It's the ultimate irony of the garden ecosystem, right? A wild weed being completely bullied out of its territory by much stronger weeds. The woodsorrel, despite its wild nature and its knack for popping up here and there, simply wasn't tough enough to compete head-to-head when forced into a literal turf war for ground space. The source text paints a pretty poignant picture of this horticultural defeat. Eng notes, and I quote, "It can't sustain its own growth and spread to surrounding areas." You can almost feel the gardener's clinical realization here. It acts as a dramatic turning point. The conclusion was undeniable. This underdog plant, when thrown into the highly competitive arena of the open garden, just couldn't fend for itself. The ground cover experiment was, well, effectively a failure. Section 4. An accidental potted sanctuary. But hey, science is full of surprises. Just when the experiment seemed totally over, Eng makes a brand new, highly significant observation. Several of these yellow woodsorrel plants had actually managed to obtain a foothold and sprout all on their own in an existing empty pot. Think about the massive significance of this for the little plant. Safely tucked away from those aggressive, bullying weeds of the open garden, this abandoned, empty pot accidentally became a safe sanctuary. It inadvertently provided a perfect, isolated microenvironment where the woodsorrel could finally thrive, completely unbothered, without being outcompeted for nutrients and space. It was a completely organic, accidental success story. Section 5. The propagation plan. This accidental sanctuary sparks a brand new phase in Eng's research. The gardener's mindset shifts from a past failure right back to future potential. So, the crucial point is exactly how Eng reacts to this new development. The journal entry concludes with a clear two-step scientific plan. Step 1, observe this specimen in its newly found potted environment. Step 2, learn how to propagate it locally. Eng is taking all those hard lessons learned from the failed ground cover experiment and applying them directly to a new controlled propagation study. This is where the real takeaway lies for us guys. It's a brilliant example of scientific adaptability. It shows how we can adjust our hypotheses and methods when we're presented with fresh, unexpected evidence. Which brings us right back to the exact title of Eng's post, which you'll notice is posed as a question. Propagating yellow woodsorrel, oxalis-corniculata? We've gone from a plant growing wildly to a failed ground cover experiment outcompeted by aggressive weeds
to an accidental potted sanctuary, and finally to a renewed scientific mission. The question mark at the end of that title is really everything. Will the deliberate propagation actually work this time? Will this underdog plant finally thrive under Eng's careful observation now that it's safe from the aggressive weeds? It beautifully summarizes this entire leg of the journey, and it absolutely leaves us eagerly waiting to see if Eng succeeds in entry number 964.